Hi, I'm the Beauty Professor, and you can find my beauty blog at www.beautyprofessor.net. Today, by request, I'm going to be sharing with you my tips for how to look like the best version of yourself possible when in front of a video camera, perhaps filming for a tutorial or sharing content online. Or maybe it's a relational reason, like talking online via Skype to somebody who might be a relational prospect. Facing a video camera can be a daunting prospect. You feel like the camera's picking up every flaw. There's obviously lighting and background concerns, and then the question of how much makeup is too much makeup for the camera on your face. You definitely want to look like yourself, but as I mentioned before, the best version of yourself. Now, I do YouTube videos specific to my beauty blog, Beauty Professor, and so most of my content is beauty driven, having to do with reviews and discussion about makeup looks. But I have gone through an evolution when it comes to my own videos. I film at my house. I don't have any fancy equipment. In fact, I'm filming this very video on my iPhone 5. I'd like to stress that I in no way think that I'm an expert on how to be your best on camera, especially in light of all the amazing YouTube videos and tutorials and vloggers out there. People spend a lot of time and energy making their videos a professional product, and I'm always impressed by the things that I see. But for the everyday person who's using minimal equipment and dealing with very low-key lighting situations, I'm happy to share my tips regarding what works and what hasn't worked for me in the past. So first things first, you will need to consider how you're positioning your camera. Now, I work with a little tripod that I mount directly to the top of my laptop, and it ends up being exactly the right positioning for where my head is. But I also make sure that I am not so close to the camera that it's distorting the size of my head, or so far away that people aren't getting an adequate picture of whatever it is I'm discussing. So you want to be about in this case, 2.5 feet maximum away from your camera. And certainly I edge in to get closer when I'm showcasing perhaps a particular makeup application or a product. Lighting is something that I have worked hard to improve in my own videos. And while I have said before, I'm very impressed by the professional lighting situations that many YouTubers have, mine is less than professional. I find that at minimum, it's best to film about 8 feet away from a window if it's natural daylight coming through that window, because you get the light on your face, it showcases the true coloring that you possess, and it illuminates things nicely. Never ever film with the light behind you, especially, in an amateur home situation. It will just make everything dark, and I've certainly learned that the hard way. In terms of background, you want something that airs on the lighter side. So I have a couple different colored walls in my house, and I have filmed in front of my burgundy wall many times over because it seemed like the most natural position for me to film in my house. However, I got some really helpful feedback from some of my subscribers who said that it was just too dark, and then it confused the coloring that I might be applying on my face. So I opted for a lighter wall, which in this case is true to the color that you see here. It's kind of like a beigey ochre yellow gold tone, and it's the lightest wall in my house that is reasonable for filming in front of. And that brings me to my next point, which is what's on the wall. Now in this case I have artwork that I would not entertain the idea of taking off the wall and then putting on the ground so the wall is clear and then putting it back up again when I'm done filming. That's not realistic for me. So I'm opting to film in front of this. In this case, my pieces on the wall are pretty basic and classic and clean, and I don't think they pose a ton of distraction. In fact, a lot of times my subscribers will ask me about the artwork that they see, and I have an affinity for antiques, and so most of what you'll see on my walls has some kind of historical significance. So you want to find a wall that is relatively clear to film in front of, so it's not busy and competing with you, which is what you're intending to showcase in the video. Now, whether you're filming for a video or you're Skyping with a significant other, I always advise doing one quick test run with your lighting and your setting situation. Because I have filmed entire videos where I've put a lot of thought and effort into what I'm saying and doing, and then I've watched the playback and realized that my head was maybe up here more than I thought, or it was really painfully off center. So I suggest, based on my own trial and error, I suggest filming maybe 10 seconds of your filming situation and playing it back before you continue on with the video, or if it's, like I said, a live synchronous chat with somebody else, just do a quick test run for yourself before you log in and connect with them, so that you can make sure you have a clear insight onto how you look to them. One more point on lighting. When I don't have natural daylight to take advantage of, then I might need to harness the power of artificial light. Now, for my purposes, I have two soft boxes that I ordered online. They were about $100 for both of them. I prefer to position those lights on either side of my head, kind of at an angle, so that you're getting light, but it's not so intense. And I've learned that that's preferable to overhead lighting, which casts an innumerable amount of shadows. So if you can avoid overhead lighting, I have recessed lighting in this very room that I'm sitting in, but when I try to film with that, you just get a ton of shadows that you have no control over, and it does not bode well for the video. So whether you're using softbox lighting or perhaps just some really great lamps, I suggest positioning them at an angle on either side of where you're centered to cast the greatest, most flattering amounts of light on your face. And in terms of gesturing, I don't think that you necessarily need hands and camera. By the way, and this is something that as a relatively new YouTuber, I have a channel for a little over a year, I never understood why people, when they put a product up, for example, why they hold their hand behind it. Okay, so maybe I was the only one in the dark about this, but they'll do this, and I always used to wonder, like, what is this about? Is this just a blogger thing or a vlogger thing, No. For those who might not know, like I didn't, this actually brings to focus whatever you want the camera to see. So now and everything behind this item gets blurry, and the item in front gets focused. You are showcasing something, you create a nice flat, clean background behind that item so that the camera can focus on that front area. There you go. Two final points before I get into essential beauty items for the camera, and that would be that it's ideal, especially as a long-haired person, if you have hair that might get into your face, to do your best to kind of position it so it doesn't move around a lot. Certainly if it's getting in front of your eyes, you might need to sweep it back. But it can be distracting for the viewer to watch someone move their hair around excessively, and it might give off a attitude or an air that isn't even you, but you're just trying to get your hair off of your face. So do what you can to position your hair in a way where you won't have to be distracted with it by moving it around. And that's just something to be mindful of. And then finally, when it comes to jewelry, and I'm a big fan of layering jewelry, I often take off a few pieces when I'm filming, because if I do talk with my hands, whether my hands are on camera or not, I find that jewelry can clang and make excessive noises on camera that nobody really wants to hear. So keeping your jewelry to a minimum, of course, unless you're showcasing something, is a great idea, just to reduce that excess noise that you're not intending. And to close, I'm just going to be covering a few beauty essentials that you might want to consider applying when you're going to be on camera. Now, this is going to be independent of the essentials you would use for a tutorial where you're showcasing different products. But if I'm going to be on camera for something, these are the things that I have found have worked for me in the past. And certainly as a beauty YouTuber, I have learned this, but also I've done a lot of on-camera work doing lectures for online college classes that I teach, and I embrace these very same beauty items in those cases as well. The first product I would suggest is a buildable coverage foundation. I have definitely discussed the many merits of the Kanibo Sensai Cellular Performance Cream Foundation. What a mouthful. It is reviewed both on my YouTube channel, and I have a litany of swatches on my blog. So I do love this one because it's buildable. I use a beauty blender to apply it quickly, and it is something that gives a nice flawless canvas. In terms of eyes, I suggest going for the lightest eye possible. Just what you need to kind of look polished and pretty, but nothing over the top because you don't want a bunch of darkness. Today, I have nothing but mascara and a little black line on my waterline. So you can see I'm wearing the Chanel Le Volume mascara, which I have discussed in the past, as well as some Rouge Bunny Rouge Feline Gaze Eye Kohl in Salome, which is just a very clean, very dark black right here on my waterline. I just put a little bit and I have nothing else on. So that way your actual eyes themselves are captivating your audience rather than a bunch of makeup. That being said, of course, if you're showcasing makeup on your eyes, then that's another story. In terms of skin, I am a fan of a nice dewy glow on the face, but you don't want to look so shiny that it looks oily. At the same time, too much powder and your skin gets dull and cakey, and that's not pretty either. So for the purposes of this video, I am wearing some Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Powder in number 5. Which is a nice light to medium beige. All I did was brush the tiniest amount in my T-zone with my Hourglass retractable foundation brush. This powder comes with a pad, but I find that if you apply powder with a pad, especially when you're going to be on camera, it's just too dense, it's too thick, it doesn't look like real skin. And then finally, to make sure that you have a little bit of a healthy flush and glow, I've applied some Guerlain Terracotta 4 Seasons bronzer. In this case, it's in number 2, which is Natural Blondes, and that's just a light bronzy color across my cheekbones. And I topped that off with a new favorite product of mine. It's the Jouer, and I have lots to say about this line in the future of many products I've been testing, and they're amazing, by the way. But this is the Jouer Glisten Brightening Powder, and it's just a very finely milled highlighting powder in the peachy champagne realm. I don't know if it's going to pick up on my finger there. You can kind of see that's very heavy, but all I did was brush it on my face with a retractable brush and put a little bit in my brow bone area, and it just creates a nice sheen that's not over the top, certainly not glittery, but just makes you look vibrant on camera, especially if you have some light being cast in your direction. I'm getting to the end of my beauty suggestions. For lips, I am wearing a combination of the Kanibo Sensai Rouge. It's called Usu Sakura. I don't speak Japanese, but that was my best attempt. And it looks like this. I'll be doing a full blog post on this soon, but it's a beautiful, creamy, light to medium pink with cool undertones. It almost looks violet here. I just put one coat of this on because it's very opaque, and I topped it off with some Tom Ford gloss in it, Naked. I'm on my second tube of this. It's one of my favorite glosses ever. It's creamy, it's opaque, it complements almost every lip color you might put it over, and it just makes the lips look full and healthy and shiny, but not too sticky. And so I'm doing a pink nude combination because that's up my alley. I suggest wearing lighter colors when you're on camera unless you're featuring a dark color, because it tends to make your lips look the most lush. Finally, for the under eye region, you might find yourself desiring to add some concealer. Today I'm working with the Le Métier de Beauté Peau Vierge Corrector Concealer in number 2. I have swatches of all 3 colors on my blog, but this is just a great concealer with some opacity for light to medium skin. It's right there in the lineup of swatches. And I just pat it a little bit in my under eye region. It cleans it up without making it look so white. And then my last point about beauty will be hair. In my case, my hair is long and straight, and truly there is a marked difference when I brush my hair before I get on camera. So if you have hair that reflects brushing, if you actually do it, I suggest brushing, and I am not a fan of brushing. It's a pain. But my hair looks a lot more polished when I do take some time to brush it before getting on camera. And if you're concerned about flyaways, highly recommend the Alterna Kendi Dry Oil Micro Mist. It's a product I recently reviewed on my blog, so I'll put the link in the details box. But it's something you can spray directly onto your hair for shine and flyaway control, or you could spray a little bit on the palms of your hands and just kind of touch it down your hair to make it silky and shiny so that the light is not accentuating flyaways. All right. That is my video on how to be the best version of yourself possible when on camera. I sincerely hope this was helpful, and I look forward, as always, to your questions and comments. Please visit me at my beauty blog, Beauty Professor, which can be found at www.beautyprofessor.net. Take care.